Comics Plus, what's going on? Akasan here. We're just looking at a bunch of different videos and catching up on a fantastic week that all of us have probably had. Lots of content. We talked about Loki. We talked about Black Widow, and we're wrapping things up. I think Rick and Morty was tonight. A lot of you guys have been recommending, talking about the Loki finale, and some of you guys have been recommending that I and the rest of the Red Dreaded Nation watch some of these theory videos or something, because for some reason, people are under this feeling that I, or I guess the fan base here, didn't get the Loki finale, which is not true. You know, I saw in the chat that people were saying that they were confused, and maybe they rightfully were, and I think that's fine for a lot of people watching for the first time. You know, off the cuff, that's the thing about putting these sort of reactions, the bravery, I guess. You got to be very brave or thick-skinned to be able to put your impromptu honest reactions of when you're absorbing it for the first time. You don't have the benefit of the 5-hour, 6-hour gap of finishing the episode, looking online and seeing what everybody else is saying, and then jump on that same sort of theory of like, oh man, yeah, it was easy to understand, right? But for the record, you know, again, I got the episode. I just didn't feel like it was very impactful for a show, the show itself. For the MCU or MCM, I even say it in the goddamn reaction that this is the beginning of the multiverse. Look, the multiverse is happening. What was there not to get about that? But in terms of an actual TV show, in terms of a finale, the pacing, the impact of that, it's a little weak for me. But that's personally my honest opinion about that. We went from what started as something that was going to be the exploration of Loki to essentially just getting cuckolded Loki in his own show, where every other version of Loki was much more interesting. Sylvie, classic Loki, kid Loki, alligator Loki, right? And so to wrap up season 1 like that, yeah, it was alright. It didn't have that impact that I was kind of hoping for versus WandaVision and Falcon, and even Falcon and Winter Soldier, which I've also said, like, the finales, like, sometimes just kind of miss the mark in terms of just boom sort of feeling, you know, where you're just like, whoo, man, that was good. Look at The Crown, for example. Crown, beautiful season finales each time. Anyways, we're gonna watch this. We're going to see what the new Rockstars have to say about the breakdown of the Loki season finale. Here we go.
Welcome back to New Rockstars. I'm Eric Ross, and this is a breakdown of Loki Episode 6, the season finale for All Time Always, which deprives us of Jet Ski Mobius, but makes up for it with Jonathan Majors' wickedly talented performance as He Who Remains, a variant of Kang the Conqueror. Look, there's so much deeper meaning hidden in all the details of this episode, so let's break down this finale frame by frame to celebrate me getting the theory right for a change. So you can get our Loki-inspired merch at newrockstarsmerch.com, like our Loki Out of Time shirt and our Loki Gator Polo and a Mobius on a jet ski shirt, but the window is closing fast, so you gotta jump on this. newrockstarsmerch.com. Okay, over the Marvel Studios title, we actually hear the music of It's Been a Long, Long Time by Harry James and Helen Forrest, which first played in Captain America the Winter Soldier, and then more memorably in the final scene of Avengers Endgame. That was the moment Steve Rogers created one of the many variant branches that could have destabilized He Who Remains' sacred timeline. Then we hear other iconic sounds
I gotta
from
double
MCU
check.
past, which at first
Am I
play
still
over
live?
the character as they appear in the Marvel title animation, but then build
It
into
looks
a
like it's recording.
cacophony as the timeline orbits around his citadel in a flat circle, time unfolding all at once from his
Alright. I feel bad for Loki. They made him too weak and kind of dumb. Cuckold. Let's go.
circle, time unfolding all at once from his perspective. But because I'm insane, I've broken down pretty much everything hidden in here. Iron Man's repulsor.
Yes. Way to go, Tic Tac!
Falcon congratulating Ant-Man during Civil War.
Way to go, Tic Tac! Way to go, Tic Tac!
Hope Van Dyne's lying to Scott Lang and Ant-Man.
That's how you punch.
Ah, that's what that was, yeah.
That's how you punch.
Hulk roaring. T'Challa's salute in Black Panther. Spider-Man's web shooter. Scott's first meeting with Falcon and Ant-Man.
You wouldn't have heard of me. No, you wouldn't have heard of me.
Natasha talking to Coulson in Avengers.
Let me put you on hold. Let me put you on hold.
Peter
Right.
Quill in Guardians of the Galaxy.
Dance off, bro. Dance off, bro. Me and you.
Thor in Ragnarok.
It's a friend from work. It's a friend from work.
That was a good
versus
one.
Cap in Endgame.
I can do this all day.
Yeah, I know.
I can do this all day.
Yeah, I know. I know.
Mjolnir, I think reverting to Cap in Endgame.
Jesus. That's
Younger
pretty good.
Hank Pym in
Impressive.
Ant-Man.
I'll show you ferocity, and I'll show you ferocity.
Carol Danvers in Captain Marvel.
Higher, further, faster, baby. Higher, further, faster, baby. That's right.
Loki to Thanos in Infinity War.
That was crazy.
We have a Hulk.
Korg to Loki in Ragnarok.
We're gonna jump on that spaceship and get out of here. You wanna come? We're about to jump on that ginormous spaceship. You wanna come?
Bucky in Winter Soldier.
Out of here. You wanna come?
Who the hell is Bucky?
Peter Quill planning in Guardians
up,
of the
Jumbo?
Galaxy.
I have heart.
Man, how many times did he have to
Natasha
listen to
Loki
all
in
that?
Avengers.
I got red in my ledger.
Wow.
I'd like to wipe it out.
Doctor Strange to Dormammu.
Dormammu, I've come to bargain.
Vision to Ultron.
I was born yesterday.
Hulk to Loki in Avengers.
Puny god. Puny god.
Wow.
Shield big guy in Thor.
Fort bigger. You're big. Fort bigger.
Fury's speech in Avengers.
There was an idea. Stark knows this.
Hawkeye's speech to Wanda in Ultron.
You are an Avenger.
Loki's final words in Infinity War.
I can't even hear that.
Banner's big line in Avengers.
I'm always That's my secret, Cat.
That was good though.
Hank Pym and Ant-Man and the Wasp.
Time is a true enemy.
You sent my suit through the mail?
And it sounds like the voice of Carly Morgenthau in there from Falcon Winter Soldier. And Caecilius to Doctor Strange.
Time is the true enemy of us all. Time is the true enemy of us all.
That one's cool.
Time kills everything.
And then it ends with a subtle baby cry.
Of us all. We think time as a one.
Now this one is actually hard to find, but it is the sound of baby Loki
What?
crying in the flashback of Thor, Odin taking him when he was a frost giant ward.
This dude was up here
There's a
like,
bit of a Loki bias
yo, this
among
dude-
these,
this
since
dude went through-
history is being filtered
hold
through the
on.
perspective of a witness
stop,
observing
pause. This dude went through 10 years of audio to find a baby cry. Scrubbing through everything. I need to find a baby in the MCU. Yo, that's impressive. All right. I gotta give it up to that guy for that. Every other one, I mean, it was getting kind of muddy at the end there, which was impressive. Yo.
And it sounds like the voice of Carly Morgenthau in there.
That's
from Falcon Winter
crazy.
Soldier. And Caecilius to Doctor Strange.
That's crazy.
True enemy of us all. Time is the true enemy of us all. Time kills everything.
And then it ends with a subtle baby cry.
Of us all. We think time as a one.
Now this one is actually hard to find, but it is the sound of baby Loki crying in that flashback in Thor of Odin taking him in when he was a frost giant ward.
That's wild.
Now you'll notice there's a bit of a Loki bias among these, since this history is being filtered through the perspective of a witness observing Loki's entire life start to finish in particular. Then we pull out from our solar system, now hearing a lecture from philosopher Alan Watts about time.
Right. Time as a one.
Watts argued that time isn't really the past causing the events of the future, but in truth, just an imaginary concept that we perceive from where we are in the present, similar to the non-linear way he who remains perceives time.
Right.
And then we zoom out from the galaxy and we hear Neil Armstrong's first words on the moon. Meanwhile, a mysterious ship soars past us. Now this doesn't look like any of the Guardians of the Galaxy ships, nor one that NASA would use, or one that I think Sword would use, especially this far out in the solar system, but I'm thinking it could be one piloted by Kang enemies, the Fantastic Four. And we hear the voice of climate activist Greta Thunberg.
Oh my
All the
god.
galaxies, our known universe appears to be contained within this blue sphere, which then condenses and then explodes.
Wow.
Maybe a depiction of a Big Bang or a future Big Bang, an event that would have created the Infinity Stones. Then we hear the voice of activist
Greta, officially in the MCU. Or M.
Ala Yousafzai. And then the voice of Nelson Mandela.
We have fought for the right to experience peace.
You know, the worst part is, I thought that was a clip from Black Panther or something. I feel so bad. I was like, damn, was that one of, like, was that like the beginning of Black Panther when they were like, what was it, Papa, or not Papa, Jojo or something? Tell me a story.
As Tchaikovsky's music from Swan Lake plays, representing a battle between light and dark, like the apathetic yet still benevolent variant of Kang versus the darker, more menacing variants who end up conquering in the end. We realize everything we have just seen has been set inside of one black hole that neighbors another as the music shifts like a radio dial to Beethoven's Pure Release.
To experience peace.
Which he wrote as an ode to his lover, perhaps reflecting the way Kang's actions may have been für Ravonna. Everything we're seeing here is really an astronomical geography of the spatial relationship between these universes, which He Who Remains later describes as stacked on top of each other. And then we dive into that second black hole, a separate reality now, as we hear the voice of classic Loki from last episode. And then we briefly see one planet colliding into another. Perhaps this was Lamentus 1. And then we stretch into a Bifrosty 2001 Space Odyssey Stargate as we hear first Liberian President Ellen Johnson Sirleaf's 2006 speech.
Motivated by women throughout the world. Jesse. Motivated by women throughout the world.
How many people are working on these videos to put them out so quickly? Watch Mojo can't do that.
And then Vision's big line from WandaVision.
What is grief if not love persevering?
Yes.
If not love persevering.
And then poet Maya Angelou. That was from a poem with verses about her history being rewritten, which does happen to Sylvie and Loki at the end of this episode when no one remembers them. And the final things we hear during this montage are Sylvie's voice from last episode.
Open your eyes! Open your eyes!
And then some Morse code beeping. This could be the 1962 Morse message that was beamed out to space. And we see the Citadel at the end of time with this cracked design, which is also reflected in He Who Remains' time twister on his wrist and his tableau goo. Looks a lot like kintsugi pottery, representing how He Who Remains likely had to piece it together from broken shards of that past multi.
And there's actually, I'm gonna throw something in here really quickly. There's a technique that they do in Japan, the same way where when something is broken, they actually, when the china or when your pottery, when your plates are broken, the porcelain is broken, they reseal it with gold trimming. And I forgot what the symbolism about that is, but there's a reason why they actually use gold for it, to like not forget the past, but to hold it together and make it even better afterwards, or something like that. Yeah, but that's actually a technique in Japan that is used as well.
Universal War to create this kind of neutral ground, and foreshadowing the way that this timeline will splinter and crack once more in the episode's end. Flanking this entrance are two giant hourglasses. And staying true to this series' Wizard of Oz parallels, their slow walk down the hall does mirror the nervous walk to meet the wizard. Just reveal that man behind the curtain is a far more comedic figure than we expected. Before we even get there, Miss Minute scares the shit out of us in this chamber with looming hooded figures with clocks for faces. Kind of like a creepier form of what Miss Minute's essentially is, a clock-faced greeter.
Good point.
And note how later she's late to meet Renslayer, therefore she cannot be in two places at once. And she offers them this deal.
He's worked it out so we can reinsert both of y'all back into the timeline in a way that won't disrupt things.
Similar to the offer made in The Matrix to the humans.
Yes, exactly.
Kind of playing out like the architect scene in Matrix Reloaded.
Funny enough, though, I was completely thinking about Wizard of Oz and The Matrix when watching it live, but later, this whole idea of free will and how everything is just, it kind of feels pointless. I remember this was also kind of the tipping scale for me with The Matrix, where once we got to this point, it felt like, I don't know, something about it kind of dropped off for me. So for them to do the same thing in Loki, it just isn't really kind of my thing, I guess, when it feels like there was no free will, everything is sort of pointless, and that you did, and you're being kind of like you're puppeted, your entire existence is kind of being puppeted. The Matrix also, I kind of lost kind of feeling after that. I'll never forget this scene with the Matrix. Like, it was the thing that always kind of turned me off of the franchise afterwards.
But a lot more fun to watch. Miss Minutes offers Loki his chance to rule.
You can kill Thanos.
And Natalie Holt's violin theme
very well done.
returns. The music that played over Loki watching his own life back in episode 1, but not to his own death, but to the deaths of Frigga and Odin.
Yeah. Ah. Right.
That is who he's really thinking about in this moment. A chance to see them in Thor again. Now, trailer footage showed some shots of King Loki on the Asgardian throne and back at the top of Stark Tower. Presumably, these were going to be shown here as Loki imagined these
That would have been nice.
Now, back at the TVA, Renslayer notices Mobius ring stains on the table, something that he did not remember leaving, which could connect to his total memory reset at the end of this episode, making me wonder if the TVA could have been reset before all this many times, similar to how in The Matrix, that was actually the 6th incarnation of The Matrix. Ravonna gets a mystery file.
He thinks this will be more useful.
Who?
Yeah, notice how here Renslayer does not seem to know who He Who Remains is, but in the later scene, she suddenly seems more agitated, and she gripes that he's the only one with free will. So what did she learn from this file?
Right.
Well, later, Mobius reveals that Renslayer actually came from FDR High School in Fremont, Ohio in 2018, where she was apparently the principal based on her having an office, and that Ohio State diploma, listing her name as Rebecca Tormenay, an alias that Renslayer actually uses in the comics when she goes to the year 1903. So I love it. She goes from a name sounding like Terminate to one sounding like Slayer. Now on her desk, you'll see more pens like the one that we saw. And around this school are posters of FDR, but also Eleanor Roosevelt in her office, and then a bunch more posters of coat drives, and this being homecoming week. And that is interesting because
Spider-Man, no, but it's interesting because, so I guess New Rockstars, they're on the theory that it's a memory reset, where others have had the theory that Loki actually was sent to another TVA like that. Interesting.
Because Homecoming is, of course, normally in the autumn. But Autumn 2018 in the MCU would have been a few months after the snap, which occurred in the spring of that year. So perhaps this coat drive is for displaced kids and families during the blip. And the reason she joined the TVA could have been blip related. Because Ravonna Renslayer is, of course, Kang's love interest in the comics. So maybe here in the show, he has something over her. Like she could have been destined to have been dusted. And that could have left behind a child who died without her. So to keep her sacred timeline self undusted and that kid safe, she continues to work for Kang as his objectified doll.
I have to believe they had a reason.
But here, upon learning this truth, she leaves through this time door.
Where are you gonna go?
In search of free will.
Which could be her searching for a reality with a different Kang variant who might give her a better deal, which could lead to the Kang the Conqueror, who overtakes the TVA in the final scene. By the way, most of us have a goal that we want to accomplish, but for some reason we haven't yet, right? Maybe it seems overwhelming, or you're just not excited enough to start. Well,
sounds like a sponsorship. Yeah, I thought so. But I appreciate that. Yeah, all right.
Use our promo code NEWROCKSTARS for your 10% off. But back in the...
Most of you guys think it's a reset. So, type in, if you believe it's a reset, type in reset. If you guys think it's a different TVA, just put in TVA in the chat right now. Hey, Knight.
Citadel, Loki and Sylvie reach a chamber with these ceiling cogs and pendulums bells, but then on the floor, a depiction of
I saw that
lunar
one, yeah.
cycle.
Who?
All of these are various ways of keeping time.
One.
But also, timekeeper statues. 3 still standing, but a 4th one shattered. In the comics, there was a 4th timekeeper named the Oracle of Siwa, who was exiled to ancient Egypt for informing the Fantastic Four of events to come. Perhaps this statue was shattered during the past multiversal war between Kangs, and He Who Remains couldn't put it back together. Or this could be some evidence of a past attempted uprising in one of the past TVA resets, where one of the timekeepers betrayed He Who Remains to help a variant get to him, and then He Who Remains responded by expelling that one faulty timekeeper and destroying his statue that represented him. But then the man behind the curtain we've been talking about is
looking like a Drake video. It's looking like a hip-hop video, man. About to look like an album cover right here, man. Hey, man, let me freestyle. It really be looking like an album cover, man. Have you heard about the ship of Prometheus? What was that? Yo, Vision, and He Who Remains need to do a collab, man. Man on the Moon, Part 4. There you go.
Revealed.
He Who Remains. She still calling me that? Creepy. Right. I like it.
Yes, He Who Remains is actually the name of the elderly TVA caretaker at the Citadel at the End of Time who builds the Timekeepers in the comics. And although he's never explicitly named Kang in this episode, right, He Who Remains is 100% confirmed to be a variant of Kang the Conqueror. Jonathan Majors was cast as Kang for Ant-Man the Wasp: Quantumania. He is dressed like Immortus, who is another form of Kang from the comics. He said that his variant was from the 31st century, when Kang Nathaniel Richards was born. He calls himself a conqueror. And yeah, this pays off all the clues the show has given us, from Renslayer to Alioth to the Tower for Kang Enterprises, the shell company, Renslayer's ID of A23, which was their appearance together in the comics, Avengers 23. And notice how here the light casts his face in blue, like his Now notice he eats an apple, which could mean a lot of things. First, it's a symbol of Newtonian knowledge, you know, boink. And later on, in his office is this chalkboard with equations that use integrals. And if I remember from Calculus AB in high school, this is calculus, and Sir Isaac Newton is credited as a co-creator of calculus. But the apple also recalls Doctor Strange's use of an apple to first demonstrate time manipulation in the MCU, but also reminds us of that episode 2 word problem from Miss Minutes that asked about the last MCU big bad, Thanos, using him eating apples as an example. Of course, apples are also associated with the forbidden fruit of the Garden of Eden in the Book of Genesis.
I guess.
To tempt Adam and Eve by the serpent.
And the apple that Doctor Strange was using was red, which signifies stop, where Kang, or He Who Remains, is one having a green apple, and that means go, the progress of time going.
And in this episode, He Who Remains offers these Adam and Eve figures chances to be gods, and refers to himself a few times this episode as the devil. Now, to pull off this effect of He Who Remains dodging Sylvie's blows, Hiddleston and DiMartino must have had to shoot their action on a green screen, and then had to be layered into that elevator with Majors. But this render was left just rough enough around the edges that leaves the characters and us feeling emotionally detached from this seemingly untouchable immortal. He Who Remains reveals this is all scripted, and we see, if you look closely at his book, that Sylvie is ID'd as variant L1190. And notice how he lifts that book. I like how he does a subtle little adjustment of his time twister to draw attention to it, since this is the key to controlling the room. And I think he ultimately wants Sylvie to take it and kill him so that he can respawn in a more dangerous form. Like, I think the Council of Kangs know that Loki and Sylvie's union make them true Nexus beings that threaten their empire. And so He Who Remains really feigns this candidness with this phony offer to replace him, while really he is driving a wedge between them the whole time.
Which came first? The Council of Kangs? I'm asking the more hardcore comic fans out there. Which came first? The Council of Kang or the Council of Reed Richards? I'm assuming the Council of Kangs was first, and then later they incorporated that into the House of Richards, or the Council of Reed Richards, or something like that. I personally like the Citadel of Ricks, but you know, yeah, I figured as much. Yeah.
It's all a manipulation.
Interesting that your head would go to that. Sylvie!
You think you can trust this guy?
He Who Remains later says,
without the TVA, everything burns.
Jonathan Majors is having a blast, hamming up the eccentricities in this jaded, sing-songy tone. He's constantly moving to new physicalities just to punctuate and liven this monologue. Kind of like a guy on the last day of his job. Super dangerous, super fun to watch. You can actually compare him to Heath Ledger's Joker, who also says similar
everything
words.
burns.
Everything burns.
Yep.
And when he's seated at his desk, he's framed with his head in the middle of his spiral window in the background. Kind of like the whole universe orbiting around his egomaniacal
or Doctor Strange or Mickey Mouse.
personality. And he explains a variant of himself in the 31st century discovered parallel universes the same time as other variants.
For a while, there was peace.
I like this. I really like that part.
Peace. I love your shoes. I love your hair. Oh, man. Nice nose. Thanks, man.
Yeah, Majors might be joking about his own recognizable nose, but really he knows he is sexy. We see how the Kang variants invented time doors, reset charges, the computers, pruning sticks the TVA use, but they ended up in this multiversal war, meaning that Miss Minutes animation was actually telling the truth about that, just that it wasn't the Timekeepers who ended it, but He Who Remains apparently repelling these even worse evil Kangs. The figurines shapeshift into prayerful and grateful poses.
Right.
He says,
I've lived 1,000,000 lifetimes. I've gone through every scenario. This is the only way.
Similar to how Doctor Strange said that he saw 14,605 future outcomes, but that only one was a successful way forward.
There was no other way.
Now, of course, He Who Remains' offer is very much like a Willy Wonka-style offer to them to take over his job. But I love how Majors nods at that with his pose.
I said
here.
that.
Or you're a liar.
Or I'm a liar.
Yeah, laying it on his fist, just like the Willy Wonka.
Yeah,
As he says he is older than he looks and that this game is for the young and hungry, the camera pulls back from him, making him look smaller and smaller, more diminished in the window spiral, as if his influence is appearing to fade. And then he snaps at Sylvie.
Grow up! Grow up, Sylvie! Murderer! Hypocrite!
Similar to how Caecilius called out the Ancient One.
Hypocrite!
Because among sorcerers, no one really has the moral high ground. But then everything shifts in this scene.
But now, you have a chance to do them for a good reason.
I fibbed.
We just crossed the threshold.
Yeah, that thunder was the sound of the sacred timeline breaking up. And fitting to use thunder for that, because as it branches, it does look a lot like heat lightning, evoking the moment the Ancient One slowed down time and death. A similar moment where she, just like He Who Remains here, could not foresee beyond that point. So what caused this? Ravona's pact with another Kang? Or could He Who Remains justifying free will subversion have been the thing that Sylvie decided she was just gonna kill him no matter what Loki told her? Either way, that break makes it so that when Loki returns to the TVA, it has already warped and reset so that a different Kang is now ruling this one. He Who Remains removes his time twister and slides it over, but notice how his gesture, again sliding his hand across the table,
It's an interesting
and
theory.
the framing makes it look like
Right.
it is still on his hand,
Right.
which could be a clue that this offer is really a bait and switch because both alternatives lead to his victory. Loki and Sylvie duel, and upon their early clash, He Who Remains jumps in his seat in the corner in excitement, which is similar to how Palpatine loved watching Luke and Vader fight, and before that, Anakin and Dooku fight, because either way, the mastermind has already won. It's so tragic to see these two fight, largely in the way it parallels what Loki told Sylvie as an answer to what love is back in episode
Love is a
3.
dagger.
Love is a dagger. It's a weapon to be wielded far away or up close. You can see yourself in it. It's beautiful until it makes you bleed. But ultimately, when you reach for it,
It isn't real.
Yeah, Loki wields his love for Sylvie up close and can see himself in her, but she makes him bleed. And when he reaches for it, it isn't real. Instead, classic Loki's wisdom really reigns supreme.
The blades are worthless in the face of a Loki sorcery.
But despite all this, Loki does make a key concession.
All I know is I don't want to hurt you. I don't want a throne. I just want you to be okay.
Signaling that he
Cuckold.
learned the core lesson that Sylvie laid out for him earlier this season.
This isn't about you.
But as he tumbles back through the time door into the TVA theater, the window lights on the floor go in opposing directions, which is odd because presumably they're coming from the same exterior light source. The way these lights paralleled Loki and Mobius's opposition in episode 4, they now mirror the opposition between Loki and Sylvie. But on a more literal level, it also shows how this new TVA that Loki has found himself in does not revolve according to the same gravity as the old one did. So Sylvie stabs He Who Remains and he winks and says,
"See you soon."
Yeah, back in episode 4, after Sylvie beheaded the Timekeeper android and the other two shut down, if you listen closely, you could hear a voice whisper, "See you soon." Yes,
What?
the voice of Kang
What?
He Who Remains, who was calling his shot back then, and now his wink confirming it to her, that she truly has had no free will in this battle. The sacred timeline splits into branches of branches of branches, and the chronomonitor screen confirms that many of these branches overlap with each other. And looking back at the cosmic version of it, some regions grow a bright red, which could be the incursion that we saw in WandaVision's post-credit scene, and been the cause of Wanda suddenly hearing her children calling to her from another reality. So yes, we are looking at the multiverse of madness that Doctor Strange 2 will take place in, where the Scarlet Witch will be the rising threat he has to face. Perhaps even the logical basis for how Alfred Molina, Doc Ock, and Jamie Foxx Electro will appear in Spider-Man No Way Home. Hopefully we get a trailer for that very soon. Meanwhile, Loki finds the TVA change as he passes a bunch of hunters who don't really care about him. It's hard to tell, but one of these must be Hunter K5E.
Copy. Reporting to the armory, sir.
Listed in the credits as Eugene Cordero, meaning Casey must have either got promoted or in this alternate TVA, instead of being a desk clerk, he gets to be a hunter. And then in the archives, he finds Mobius and B-15 who have no idea who he is, which is really odd because even before he was a detained variant, Loki was the freaking god of mischief with an infamous reputation, so this must have been a hard memory wipe reset. The Timekeeper statues have been replaced with He Who Remains variant. In this case, it is Kang the Conqueror, which we know because he's wearing his Conqueror wardrobe. This might remind you of that final twist in Tim Burton's 2001 Planet of the Apes with the Lincoln Memorial, but just by looking at this,
what did I
while
say?
the TVA may change on a dime, its true creator is now, thanks to Sylvie, for all time, always. And the credits confirm that Loki will return for a second season, and with Kang's confirmed appearance in Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania in February 2023, I'm thinking season 2 could come at the end of 2022, or maybe in the first weeks of 2023 to lead into that.
I hope we don't have to wait that
Quantum
long.
Realm City in the background that I've been theorizing could be Kang's Kingdom of Chronopolis. And Kang in Quantumania could live beyond that film to be the villain of a future Fantastic Four film or
That's
an
what I
Avengers
want,
Secret Wars conflict. But whenever we see Kang next, with an actor as talented and versatile as Jonathan Majors, it would not surprise me if he brings a whole new characterization to his Conqueror.
He
variant.
will.
We
He
still
definitely
have
will.
much to
Yeah.
learn about him, and that is what makes him so dangerous and so delightful. I want to thank you all so much
All right.
for joining me on these breakdowns of Loki. This show is a true masterclass in world building and storytelling, and I hope the details and connections I've been able to find have enriched the viewing experience for you. Don't worry, I'll be back with plenty more Marvel theories and future breakdowns, so be sure to subscribe to New Rockstars.
All right, thank you, New Rockstars. What do you say, Bad? So many Easter eggs, I'm kind of lost. Well, you know, and that's the thing. It's like, look, and this is the thing. This is what I kind of took offense to after that premiere came out and people were attacking you guys, the fan base, for being lost. It's okay to be lost. I mean, that's the point of Easter eggs. Easter eggs are just there for speculation, for fun. You're not necessarily they're not there to be found. Unless you're really, really looking. And if you don't really necessarily get it, there's no fault in that, because that's not what this isn't a mystery movie. This isn't a mystery game. It's just there for entertainment, and no one should discredit you as a general fan or even a big fan for not understanding that or not getting that. It's like, there's nothing cool about flashing a nerd card. There's nothing cool about flashing a nerd card and putting down somebody else. You didn't get that? What's wrong? I got it the moment it came out. Nerd. You know, it's like, and you know, there's nothing cool about belittling somebody just because they didn't understand something more. So that's what I took offense to the most, is that people were insulting my fan base that were, you know, gathering together to watch the finale and just have a good community together, you know, to enjoy. Do you want to? It reminds me a lot of, like, you know, you wouldn't talk like that to somebody in a movie premiere right after the movie finishes and people are kind of just thinking about it and like, what? How did you not get? You could admit, like, you wouldn't do that in front of somebody's face like that. So why would you do it online? Oh, well, we know why, right? So one of the best conversations I've ever had was after Interstellar. You know, watching Interstellar and absorbing it, and then just going to dinner after that movie and just kind of talking about quantum physics and talking about different realities and different dimensions of realities and how that kind of comes together, and just kind of having an assumption of what you felt, what you took from that movie. Doesn't matter what somebody else says on the internet, because it's not true. New Rockstars, they have a team of people that they put together. They're under the theory that the TVA actually got, the TVA got a hard reset, which I do kind of like that theory, right? But there's also people that believe that Loki was sent to a completely different TVA, which for me is a little harder to digest, only because the TVA is supposed to exist outside of time and space. So, but the fact that, but I can understand why people somehow got to that point, because the whole show was building upon variants, right? And the fact that there's different types of variants, so why couldn't there be different types of TVAs? Not everything that the TVA has said has been true, right? You know, we were under the assumption that there were 3 timekeepers, which that wasn't true. So I think it's fine to have those kind of theories. One of the things that the new Rockstars, I believe it was the new Rockstars, came up with a while back was the fact that Sylvie is the daughter, adopted daughter of Hela in some sort of time, another time, in some sort of other multiverse, right, or a timeline. And you know, I love, personally, I love that particular theory. But just because the new Rockstars said it doesn't mean it's true. Doesn't mean that that's the way it happened, right? Everybody has theories. Everybody has fan theories. But to denote somebody for not subscribing to that theory or having have a different opinion is just downright rude and nasty, when at the end of the day we're just talking about fictional characters and comic books. Like I said, there's nothing cool about flashing that sort of feeling, flashing that nerd card in front of somebody like that. That's no. Now, anyways, Red Dreaded Nation, exactly. Red Dreaded Nation, stand up, speak up. Let me know what you guys think about all this. If you want me to do a few more of these videos, I'd be down with it. I really enjoy how much the new Rockstars, the sort of work that they put into this. It's very, very impressive, actually. And again, let's just talk, like just keep in mind, as much work as they put into, these are also the same sort of theory channels that are completely under the impression that Mephisto was going to show up at the end of WandaVision, right? So, as beautifully constructed as it could be, just remember, these are all just theories, and we really won't know until more time comes. And hopefully, a lot sooner than Season 2 is predicting. I hope Season 2 will come a little bit faster than 2 years from now, because there's still a lot of story to tell within the Loki TV show. So that's why, again, going back to what I was originally saying, as a TV show and the story that it's telling, as a finale, it was iffy for that sort of story being told in terms of impact. But for the MCU and the MCU multiverse, MCM, amazing, right? But who knows how the rest of these stories are going to be told via TV or movies. We just don't really know, because nothing is set in stone right now. And that's, I guess, the last thing I want you to remember is to chill the fuck out when having these conversations online. Everybody has their own sort of theories, and nobody can, only Feige knows, and only in Feige we trust. And only Feige knows exactly what's going to happen. Feige the Conqueror. Feige that remains.